You might recognize today's guest, Vern Yip, from shows like Trading Spaces, HGTV's Design Star, and Deserving Design. He also runs his own design studio in Atlanta, designs a line of dog and kid-friendly furniture, has published multiple books on how to maximize your home, and he still has more TV and book projects in the works, which I don't think we're going to find out about today. Vern actually wrote his master's thesis on new urbanism, so Serenbe has been on his radar since the earliest days. After many years of spending time in the community, Vern and his husband Craig decided to make the leap to living here part-time, and they're currently building a beautiful home to retreat with their children and 7 dogs. In this episode, I'm joined by special guest host Garnie Nygren to catch up with Vern about his love of animals, how that led him to meeting his husband, his journey to Serenbe, and why he finds so much joy in the community here.
Serenbe is great for connecting with nature, but I would say that the best part is really connecting with other people. The infrastructure has been purposefully designed to support that. The architecture has been thoughtfully put in place to support that. The ideas behind how we cohabitate with nature and animals and our neighbors, that's been thoughtfully put in place as well.
Vern, welcome to Serenbe Stories. We're so thrilled to have you here today. I also want to welcome Garnie Nygren, who was our special guest co-host. We're thrilled to have. Hi, Garnie. Hi, Vern.
Hi there. So good to be with you guys.
And so excited to co-host this and a conversation with one of my favorite Serenbe neighbors.
I knew.
This is off to a great start. I love that.
Well, during Serenbe Stories, Vern, the first thing we sort of ask people is, how did you discover Serenbe? Or to put it another way, what is your Serenbe story?
Well, funny enough, so I'm an interior designer and an architect in addition to being a television host. And I got my graduate architecture degree, my master's in architecture from Georgia Tech, and you had to write a thesis. And so my thesis was really kind of based on new urbanism. So at that time, Serenbe had not been born yet, but I had really studied the models of those communities that sprung up on 30A, meaning Seaside and subsequently Rosemary Beach. There was no Alice Beach at that time, but these were all communities that were propelled forward and were getting notoriety for their new urbanist principles that were really put in place to kind of develop a sense of community that a lot of neighborhoods throughout the U.S. had kind of lost. So, of course, right in my own backyard, Serenbe popped up, I guess nearly 20 years ago, and immediately came onto my radar. And it's been really exciting because I would just poke my head in occasionally from time to time just to kind of see how things were progressing, and just noticed how much of a community it was really becoming, this sense of belonging and this trying to create this better quality of life for everybody, and the preservation of our natural world and how we as humans can live side by side with our natural world and respect it, but at the same time, really appreciate it and take advantage of using it to raise our families and our communities. So I really kind of began to zoom in around 2014 or 2015. And I think really that's where the serious seeds were laid to eventually make a commitment to Serenbe. And I'm so glad that we did.
So did you spend any weekends down here? Is that sort of like in that time exploring what it was? Were you popping down for the day, for the weekend? Like what type of things were you doing? Okay. And were you sort of like, Because it's interesting. I mean, we've lived here since 2009. And so as it's grown, you can see people's faces change of like, oh, maybe they're not crazy. Maybe there's something here. So Garnie, how long have you guys known each other, you and Vern?
Gosh, time is such a funny thing. Vern, when did you all, so has it been about 1.5 years?
I would say, close to 1.5 to 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Garnie, you haven't aged a day in those 2 years.
You've gotten younger, Vern.
Oh, we're all going to one up each other.
I love it. I'm just going to sit here and watch it happen.
Well, so I always love to ask people this question, which is, what about Serenbe and living here in the last, or having property here in the last 1.5 years has surprised you the most, or has happened that you didn't was unexpected?
There are so many things that Serenbe has become known for, not just nationally, but internationally, this very strong ethos of preserving our natural world, this very strong desire to create a place where people can live a better life. But what I was most surprised by, and this is what I would kind of encourage everybody to try if they, make their way down to Serenbe, they're not already down there, is to get into a golf cart and just really drive around, because what you pick up on right away is there is a very intense sense of community. People who have never seen you before will smile at you and wave at you. And then you're like, wow, I guess I'm going to wave at every single person that I pass by. And I have to say that I love that. I love that because we all live in a world where we are more disconnected than connected. We're all on our phones more. We're all on our screens more. We're all able to live lives where we don't really have to interact with other people. And on one hand, that really creates a lot of efficiency. But on the other hand, you completely disconnect yourself from any sense of community from other humans. And that's not what life is about. Yes, Serenbe is great for connecting with nature, but I would say that the best part is really connecting with other people. The infrastructure has been purposefully designed to support that. The architecture has been thoughtfully put in place to support that. The ideas behind how we cohabitate with nature and animals and our neighbors, that's been thoughtfully put in place as well. It all seems like, oh, it's just a bunch of nice people who happen to land in the same spot. It's not that. I mean, yes, Serenbe is full of nice people, but nice people can get together in an environment that doesn't have that infrastructure in place, and you won't have that sense of connectivity. You won't have that sense of community. So, that's been my favorite part of it. All the stuff that everybody talks about, writes about is great, but until you're down there and you're experiencing it and you're in your golf cart and everybody's saying hello to you and you feel like, gosh, I belong. People like me.
That's all a really big compliment coming from you. And I want to pick up on you said and connected to animals. So I think when we met, one of the things that I wasn't expecting us to bond over and, conspire over and have a future together is that your love for animals, which comes not only from you, but from your wonderful husband. So tell us about Craig and what he does and in his day job and in his passion job that we're all going to save the world doing.
Oh, gosh. So, yeah, I am a very lucky man, and I am humbled every day to be married to this incredible person and to have these lovely children with him, but to also be raising 7 dogs with him, all the dogs. The first thing that people ask when they hear that we have 7 dogs is, do you guys live on some kind of huge farm? No, we don't.
And 3 of them are Pyrenees. Of the 7, right? 3 are Great Pyrenees.
No, Garnie, 5.
5 of them.
5 are Great Pyrenees. And for those of you who are listening who aren't familiar with Great Pyrenees, they are large dogs or small bears. Take your pick. So my husband and I met through dogs, funny enough. Way back when I was shooting a show called Trading Spaces, and I was on the road 5 days a week. This is back when they used to green light 60 plus episodes for a season. Now shows are lucky to get 8 to 10 episodes greenlit. 60 plus episodes in a season. I think we were shooting 66 to be exact. That meant just being on the road all the time. And I grew up with dogs, have always loved dogs, have always been connected to animals. I was that crazy kid. I rescued a robin that fell out of its nest and its mom didn't want it back. And I raised him, and he would eat dinner on the dining room table next to me. He'd have his little pile of seeds, and I would eat my dinner, and he would be on the table eating his seeds alongside me. I was always that kid. I even had a pet eel named Lenny. And I taught Lenny how to eat shrimp out of my hand and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I wanted dogs badly when I was shooting Trading Spaces, but I was just on the road all the time. And dogs are not plants. Dogs need an emotional relationship. They need a connection. And that's why they're so wonderful. But my friend said to me, look, there is a kill shelter down the street. And this was, way back when Atlanta still had kill shelters. And the option that you can offer those dogs is going to be infinitely better than the alternative. So I justified it that way. I found 2 dogs that were literally on their last day, and I adopted them. And the shelter tipped off the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and said, Vern Yip was in here adopting dogs. And so AJC called me and they said, hey, will you take a picture with these dogs to help promote pet adoption? And I said, absolutely. I would love to do that. But they've been in a shelter for 12 plus weeks and they need a bath, and they, before they make their big debut in the public eye, they need to be cleaned up. And I was driving home from picking them up and I saw a huge billboard for my husband's company. He owns a company in Atlanta called Wag-A-Lot. Wag-A-Lot, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, we really need a Wag-A-Lot at Serenbe or outside of Serenbe. I'm trying to convince him to do that.
Oh, I tried to talk to Craig about that last night.
Oh, good. Yeah, we'll both work on him. We'll wear him down. Wag-A-Lot is an incredible company that is all kinds of, there's dog retail, there's all kinds of stuff, but Craig has purposefully designed his facilities to really best promote the health of the dog, from the way that he designs their dens to the amount of space they have to just roam around and run and play. And dogs are social animals. They love to be with other dogs. So I saw this billboard for Wag-A-Lot and I said, oh, I can get my dogs groomed there before the shoot. And I need a place to board them because basically they're going to be living at this place Monday through Friday while I'm shooting this television show somewhere else in the US. And then I'll pick them up on Friday. We'll spend the weekend together and then they'll go back to Wag-A-Lot. It's not ideal, but the alternative for them was not good. So I quickly became his number one customer. I had not met him. And because, he doesn't work behind the front desk or anything. He's a busy guy. But then I love fireworks. And one 4th of July, I decided to rent out like the big ballroom at the Westin at Lenox Mall when they used to have fireworks at Lenox Mall. And I decided I'm going to throw a party because I want to see fireworks and I want my friends to enjoy fireworks. And I just want us to celebrate the birthday of our country. And so I brought our dogs in. I brought my dogs in, my 2 adopted dogs, into Wag-A-Lot. And of course, everybody at Wag-A-Lot had conveniently called in sick that day because it was 4th of July. And so Craig was working behind the desk, which he never does. And I walked in and I immediately said, oh my gosh, this is it. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's probably TMI for this podcast. But
It's okay. Well, we'll take it.
yeah. But this part is really TMI. I had never dated a man before. I had never kissed a man. I'd never held the hand of a man. I'd never done any of that. And it's not that I didn't know I was gay. I knew deep down inside I was. But growing up, the example of what the media was putting out there as what your life was going to be like as a gay man was not me. I didn't think I was going to fit in. The stereotype that was being put forth, and of course now we know it's just a stereotype, is that, if you come out as gay, you're going to have to spend your every night dancing in some club somewhere till 3 a.m. And then when you're not dancing in the club shirtless, you're going to have to be working out at the gym shirtless. So I was like, no, I'm kind of a nerd. I'm very introverted. I'm bookish. I like to go to bed early. I like to get up early. I'm very animal centric, as Garnie pointed out. And so it took me a long time to actually come out. But once you're out, you realize that the spectrum of people who identify as gay is just as broad as any other group. So that's how I met my husband, and that's who he is, and that's the incredible company that he runs. We owe it to our dogs and to Wag-A-Lot for all the happiness, all the personal happiness in our life.
I love that. And because of your connection to dogs, right? Dogs brought you all together. It feels like you all have reintroduced me to Lifeline. By reintroduce, like we know that Lifeline is out there and important, but brought us back in, brought me back into the fold of like just the work being done by Lifeline in Atlanta and the work that Craig does on the board there. So I just want to say that and throw that out there. And you all are just huge spokespeople for Adopt, Don't Shop, and that there are so many great dogs out there that need homes.
Absolutely. And so I'm so glad you brought that up, and thank you for bringing it up, Garnie. For those of you who aren't familiar, Lifeline Animal Project is a nonprofit that is Atlanta based, and they have the contracts to run the Fulton County Animal Shelter System and the DeKalb Animal Shelter System. And they also have their own facilities. And because now you've heard this story, Atlanta used to be a community that had kill shelters. Every year, there were somewhere between 125 and 150,000 dogs that were being put to sleep every single year. And we are now, because of the hard work of so many folks, including the folks of Lifeline Animal Project, a non-kill system, which is incredible. You think that's 150,000 dogs every year who aren't meeting a horrible end. And then this year, there was just a huge overflow of dogs in these shelters. A lot of people who adopted dogs during the pandemic decided that they couldn't have them anymore, which I can't even imagine. So dogs got returned to the shelter and the shelters were overflowing. And so we adopted a sixth dog, a puppy, and his mom had unfortunately been found on the side of the road and had been injured, and these puppies were just wandering. And so we adopted this puppy and another Great Pyr, and all of his siblings had then been adopted except for his brother. And I spent about 3 weeks showing people this picture of this adorable dog I was showing it to my dentist, to my dermatologist, to the kid's orthodontist. I was like, anybody who would listen to me, I was like, look at this picture. You need this dog. And everybody was like, no, not ready. And so his foster family had finally like kind of reached the end of the time that they could host him. And I was like, Craig, this dog needs a home. And this is how we now have seven dogs. 7 dogs. Now these 2 puppies who are brothers, when we adopted them, they were, just a month and a half old. Now they are 9 months old and 85 pounds each. And so they have a ways to go.
Oh, wow. And Garnie, you have a new puppy. I popped over to your house the other day and there was a little fluffy ball of white Pyrenees. Tell us about that. How did that happen?
So I was one of the many people that Vern showed the picture of this Pyrenees puppy to, because one of the many things that Vern and Craig and I bonded over when we first met was Great Pyrenees, because I grew up with the Great Pyrenees and have a big love affair with the breed. And it just wasn't the right time. And so fast forward to probably about 4 weeks ago, we're sitting outside on having brunch at the Hill restaurant in Serenbe, and a foster parent for the Great Pyrenees rescue that Vern and Craig work with, a foster parent was on the Hill patio. And Matt, my husband, was like, okay, it's time. This is an adorable like puppy and adorable breed. And so we reached out to the Great Pyrenees Rescue group and they had puppies. And so we said, okay, we're ready. And so we picked up our 16-week-old who is at 16 weeks, 54 pounds. So as Vern said, these are not small dogs.
Yes.
And she's adorable. And we've named her Georgia. And, Pyrenees are just magical dogs.
I love that story. I'm so happy for you.
Inspired by Vern and Craig, right? Because of, yes.
You need 6 more.
Watch out. Well, that's your second dog, right? Don't forget Wilson.
Okay, 5 more.
Yeah, we're at 2 dogs and 2 cats. So we do have 4 animals in the house. So not 7, but we are at 4.
Okay,
but
fine.
I will say my husband last night was very taken with Craig's pitch about fostering. So he's like, we'll take one. I'm like, hold on. So I have a feeling there's something coming our way.
Fostering does save lives, right?
Yeah.
Craig, talking about how like Serenbe is such a wonderful like environment we always say for people of all ages and for animals, right? For animal lovers, there are so many people at Serenbe that have dogs and have capacity to give a temporary home to dogs. So Monica, just like Jeff, we're going to be coming after Jeff and other Serenbe residents to increase the number of fosters in Serenbe so that the neighborhood can help with this interim crisis that all the shelters are finding themselves in.
And I can't think of a better group of folks, really, because it is a respect for nature that so many people who move to Serenbe have, but it's also just a respect for who we share this planet with. And whether it's, a dog, a cat, or a horse, there are plenty of animals that really need our assistance. It's oftentimes because we as humans have put them in a bad place, and we as humans have the answer to put them in a better place. So I know you Serenbe folks who are listening have huge hearts. If it takes me knocking door to door with a cute puppy in my arms, I'm going to be doing it.
We like that. I think that'd be very productive. We'll put a link in the show notes for Life 9, though.
Yes, a Vern Yip delivered dog. It's like your dog styled by Vern Yip, which you have to talk about the furniture. You have to talk about the furniture that you've designed that is like dog friendly, because I'm like 7 dogs in a house. Tell us about the furniture. How does this, and you have literally a whole line that is like dog proof, animal proof.
Yeah. So once you are crazy enough to reach 4 dogs, your brain like really switches into a different direction. You're like, well, I still want my house to be nice. And so years ago, I really started realizing that it's not just people with dogs, but also people with kids. Like, we want to live in a way where our homes are beautiful and they reflect who we are aesthetically, and they support what we need functionally. That's an important confluence, aesthetics and function. Those two things have to come together for any home to really be successful and for you to feel comfortable and happy in that environment. And is there any more important place on the planet than your home? It's where the most important moments of your life unfold with the most important people in your life. And so my focus really shifted to embracing all the technology that we now have at our fingertips to create products, including fabrics that resistant to the Sharpie marker of your kid, to the drool of your dog. Anything can come out. I have 7 dogs and we have a giant white sofa, if that says anything. And it's because of where we are in this time and place with what we can do. So yes, those products exist and I've developed a lot of them. And I'm really also proud to say that this line of performance fabrics that are dog, kid, husband spilling wine on your sofa are also produced in a really environmentally responsible way, which I think is important.
And so where do we find those? Like, if somebody's listening and is like, tell me more, how do I make this part of my life?
Oh, well, you know what? When I drop off your puppy to foster, I'll also bring all my fabrics with me. We'll just make it a one stop.
We'll get a couch.
You need an interior paint color? I'll bring my paint deck too. Well, I'm going to sell you hard. If you're willing to take a foster dog, you're going to get the whole package. I mean, anything you want. No, it's sold in a variety of ways. You can get the products through your designer, but you can also shop the products at Calico, which is a retail store that they have 84 locations around the country. And there's a variety of ways. And you can go to the Fabric Cut website and go to Trend and then go into Vern Yip, see all those products.
We need a Vern Yip, like, stamped dog living room design. Is that something you're working on? And or what exciting are you working on in Vern Yip designs that everybody needs to hear about?
Oh my gosh. So for those of you who are listening, this is not the time to tune out. You're going to want to hear about
dogs. Is just the warm up.
So I put out a book. I put out 2 books actually, and I'm now working on my 3rd book. But my first book was called Design Wise, and very proud to say it was a New York Times bestseller. And it was really sort of demystifying design for everybody by giving people those hardcore rules that would really help them transform their house into a home. And there's simple things like the most frequently asked design question is, how high do I hang a picture in my house? And what do you think most people say?
Above their heads.
Most people answer that question eye level, right? You're going to hang a piece of art. You're going to hang it eye level. But the thing is, whose eye level? your eye level, your spouse's eye level, your kid's eye level? Whose eye level are you going to hang it at? And so the common rule is 60 inches, which is 5 feet from the finished floor to the center of the image or the grouping of images. This works for mirrors too, unless it's over a headboard or over a fireplace mantle. So that first book was really about demystifying design by giving people these hardcore rules that they could reference and really begin to kind of, again, transform their house into a place that really felt like a home to them. The second book was really sort of born out of this increasing number of dogs that we have. And it's called Vacation at Home. And the whole idea behind that was like, let's embrace all the great things in our lives that we now have that make living so much easier, where we are allowed to have homes that are beautiful and reflect who we are aesthetically and service us functionally. But at the same time, we're not spending every weekend stressed about repairing things or fixing things or replacing things. And I'll give you a few examples. The performance fabrics I was talking about, yes, that's one example. But also the fact that we now have LED light bulbs. I grew up, every time I came home for a holiday or whatever, when I was in college, I would get to my mom's house and she would have a to-do list. And the top of the to-do list was always change the light bulbs, all the light bulbs that she couldn't reach. Now we have these wonderful LED bulbs, which are much more environmentally responsible, but they also have an average lifespan of 22 years, which means that you're spending more time enjoying your home and less time maintaining it. Countertop materials like quartz that look like marble, but you don't have to worry every time somebody sets a glass of red wine on there, or your kids have salsa and chips. It's scratch resistant, mildew resistant, antibacterial. Rug materials, which I implement everywhere, that are a 6/6 nylon that is stain resistant, mildew resistant, moisture resistant. But the important thing is, like, you don't give up your aesthetics and you don't give up comfort. All these materials feel great and they make your home look wonderful. So there is a way to design an entire room that you would never think possible, that is environmentally responsible, kid friendly, dog friendly, messy spouse friendly, all of the friendlies. You can do it. You can achieve it. So now I'm working on my third book, which I'm really excited about. Books are a labor of love. This book is going to be out in spring of 2025. So I'm working on that. I'm working on a brand new show.
Fun.
But unfortunately not allowed at this point to disclose any details. But suffice to say, I'm really excited about it. And we've been shooting since the end of last year. And hopefully we'll hear soon about when we're going to make a debut.
Can you tell us what network, or even that embargo?
Yeah, because I have to let them make the announcement.
I know. Okay. But sometime next year it'll come out.
Yes, definitely. So it's super fun, and, it's meant a little more time away from home. But this great thing about being in the Atlanta area, right? The airport has flights to so many parts of the world, to the country. And it oftentimes means that I can fly to where I need to be on the first flight in the morning after saying goodbye to the kids on their way to school, and then get home on that last flight and still be able to be there the next day when they get up. So we live really busy lives, but we try and make it's seamless for the kids and for them to not have to be disrupted or to miss us or to need us and us not to be there, even, if it means taking that red eye, which is oftentimes super painful.
So we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you about your plans for your lot and the house that you're thinking about, or you will be building, I should say. And if we didn't mention already that you're a licensed architect, that was something that I actually learned yesterday, that's where you started at Tech, like you were saying, and that the design was sort of, you kind of fell into that in the TV, but you're designing your own house. So can you tell us a little bit? Are you willing to share your vision?
Well, first off, I have to say, I fell in love with this spot in Serenbe. I mean, there's so much to fall in love with in Serenbe, but when we saw this spot, I was like, this is the spot. Everybody who's moved to the community has had that feeling, right? Where you get to your spot and you're like, this is the spot. And
in the spot, Vern demonstrated that he does have some of the best taste of anyone that we've met, which would make sense through Vern Yip designs, right? He just zeroed in and picked one of the best lots in the whole neighborhood, just saying I have to have this.
Yeah, well, you can change
But
a
it's
lot.
because when you see it, like
You
understand views and vistas and view sheds more than like just, people who, because when you're in the design world,
there's so many great places to live in Serenbe, and you just have to pick the place that's right for you. And this felt like hand in glove. This was the right spot. And yeah, there are certain things that I really appreciate, including view and space. But yes, it's going to hopefully be our forever home one day. So we're sort of designing it with that in mind. I can say that every day my spouse gives me additional list of things to integrate.
Dog washing station.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's been fun. It's been fun to just have that lot and to visit it and to really take the time to design it correctly, because we do envision being full-time there someday, and we do envision our kids will go away to college, or at least that's what I'm hoping for. And I want them to come back there and experience it for all the major holidays. And just like I was sort of espousing, I want our most important moments of our lives to unfold in the house that goes on that lot next to our neighbors. And I'm sure so many people have this feeling, but just getting to know our neighbors has been so fun. And I feel so lucky. I feel like I've won the lottery when it comes to neighbors. And I'm sure so many people who are listening to this feel the same way. But yeah, it's great. I know I'm sort of dodging the question. I'm like a very skilled politician here, not revealing too much.
You don't have to reveal. Well, we'll do a next podcast when it's open, and we'll do a whole storytelling of how it was to build it.
Yes.
No, I know it'll be obviously a multi-year process. So I don't know if I'm sure there's a million other things we could talk about. I could sit and listen to tips on design all day. So we may have to do a whole separate podcast on just that. But as we wrap up, we always like to ask our guests the final question. You already sort of touched on it a little bit, like grab a golf cart and just like wander around. But if somebody is visiting for the first time, you've got a friend, hasn't been to Serenbe, they maybe heard of it from Atlanta, or they've been, but it was 10 years ago. What was the one or two things you would tell them they can't miss while they're here?
It really is that sense of community, which I don't know that you get just by being down there for an afternoon or meeting a friend down in Serenbe for lunch or dinner. I would say take the time to really stay for the weekend, a long weekend, come down for a week, because it just becomes more magical the more time you are there. It's, in some ways, I don't want to say like it's a slow burn, because there's obviously so much to love immediately. It's aesthetically stunning, and, all the beautiful trees and all that, it's the trails, everything. There's so much to love immediately. But once you get past the obvious, the stunning architecture, the wonderful opportunities to engage in cultural activities, the hikes, once you get past the obvious things, it's the underlying sense of friendliness and community and kindness that permeates throughout the community that I think you only get if you really only truly get if you're there for a couple days, a weekend, a week. So I would definitely say I would encourage people to take it in for a longer period of time, because once you do, you will never go back. It's an easy place to fall in love with.
Thank you, Vern. We always say that like Serenbe is special to us and we're biased, but when we hear from people like the words that you just said, it gives all the meaning to why we're doing what we're doing, is to continue just that, to give this like moment and people to have a space where they can feel that way.
Yeah. And I so appreciate not just you, Garnie, and of course your dad and your whole family for making that investment in community. But I also really want to say thank you to all the neighbors. Everybody who makes it a community. It takes everyone to. It takes a village. It takes a village.
In every sense of the word.
It does. It absolutely does. And it's been such a privilege. I wish I could snap my fingers and make that house happen tomorrow, but we will get there. And in the meantime, those of you who are living in Serenbe will see us. We pop in frequently. We have a small little townhouse that we can stay in while we're while we're building so that we can still feel like we're part of the community. So please say hi. And I'm terrible with names. So if I forget, introduce yourself again and look for me on your ring cams when I come with a puppy.
And fabrics, a puppy and fabrics.
Puppy and fabrics. I think it might be a required duo.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you for your time, Vern. I know you're super busy. Really, really appreciate you coming on Serenbe Stories.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. We'll see you on the trails.
Yes.